Okay, so today we are diving deep into a real, unfiltered coaching session to pull back the curtain on the hidden mental patterns that keep so many of us stuck. This isn't theory. This is a real-life look at how the stories we tell ourselves can literally stop us from getting the results we say we want. Let's get into it.
So get this. It all kicked off with this one fiery comment from a student. We'll call him Wilson. He went public, accusing his coach, Elton, of being a predator and calling his community vultures, exploiters. I mean, wow. That single accusation set off a conversation that uncovered something way deeper, way more complex than just a simple complaint. So what we're going to do is follow the conversation between Wilson and Elton, because what started as a complaint about a program got peeled back layer by layer, exposing this powerful, self-sabotaging pattern that had pretty much been running Wilson's entire life for years.
And what was really at the core of all this? This number, 20,000 reais. Turns out, the real problem had nothing to do with the coaching program. The real issue was this recurring, totally unbreakable revenue ceiling in Wilson's business, a financial wall he just could not get past no matter what he did.
And that leads us to the first major diagnosis here. See, this isn't about business strategy or tactics. It's about the patterns in our minds that actually create and lock in that financial ceiling. This is where the real work is.
The coach basically diagnosed the core issue as something he calls the victim pattern. And you know what this is, right? It's a defense mechanism. Instead of facing the hard truth about your own role and why you're stuck, it's just, well, it's easier to point the finger at everyone and everything else.
And here's exactly how this played out with Wilson. He blamed the program, he claimed that proven methods just made no sense to him, and he fought the coach's conclusions every step of the way. But pay attention to this subtle shift in his language. He'd say, "I can't see it," instead of admitting, "I don't want to see it." All his energy was going into defending his problem, not fighting for a solution.
And this quote from the coach just nails it. This is why the pattern is so hard to break. The moment you stop being the victim, you give up that comfort of blaming someone else. You have to take full ownership. And yeah, if you succeed, that's on you. But if you fail, that's on you too. And for a lot of people, that is just terrifying. So let's look at the consequences of this mindset. This mental block wasn't just a feeling. It led to some very real, very practical mistakes. We're about to see how that victim mindset created a business that was basically designed to fail from the start.
I mean, the math here is just brutal. The business maxes out at 20,000 reais in revenue. Best case, with a 40% profit margin, that's 8,000 reais. For two people, that's 4,000 each. But Wilson himself admitted that's not even enough to pay their bills. So how are they surviving? Credit cards. In his own words, it's a bomb that's just waiting to explode.
You see what's happening, right? His actions, or really his lack of action, line up perfectly with his victim mentality. He's got no clear plan. He's clinging to a business that's sinking, and he's just trying to survive. But what he actually needs is the total opposite. A clear plan, a hard deadline for the business to work or not, and a massive shift from just surviving to actually growing. The coach boils it down to this really simple but powerful framework. He says there are only 3 ways you can really fail with a plan. 1, you just don't have one. 2, you have a plan, but you don't actually follow it. Or 3, you're following a plan that was just plain broken from the very beginning. So, before I tell you, just take a guess. Based on everything we've just talked about, where do you think Wilson fits? I mean, he's running a business, he says he has goals, but when the coach pinned him down, he admitted it. I think we don't have a well-defined plan. Yep, he's in category 1.
All right, this next part is the climax of the whole session. This is that moment where the story someone tells themselves about who they are slams head-on into the cold, hard facts of their life. So check this out. This was Wilson's public persona, right there on his Instagram profile. A really powerful, grand statement. Entrepreneur, son of the king, called to govern. It's an image of power, of success, of being in control. And then, the coach hits him with this simple, devastating question. After laying out the reality of the failing business, the debt, the feeling of being stuck, he just looks at him and asks, "Are you governing?" And of course, the silence said everything. And this is the core lesson right here. The identity you choose for yourself changes everything about how you act. If you see yourself as a prince who's called to govern, you might start to feel like you're above doing the hard, messy work. But when that identity is completely disconnected from your reality, it actually becomes the very thing that prevents you from changing that reality.
So how do you actually fix this? Let's switch from diagnosing the problem to talking about the solution. Here are the real, actionable steps you have to take to break this cycle and finally start making progress.
The path forward is actually pretty clear. First, you have to shatter the illusion. Your identity has to be based in reality, not fantasy. Second, you have to face the numbers head on, acknowledge the business is failing, and give it a deadline. Third, build a real plan. And finally, take 100% responsibility. The blame game is over.
And on a practical level, here are the immediate financial goals. The new plan absolutely has to bring in more than the current $8,000 in profit. The bleeding has to stop, which means no more credit cards to plug the gaps. He needs to seriously look at other options, like a design job that might pay more with way less risk. And finally, he has to actually define what a better quality of life costs and shift from that vague survival mode into a real strategy for growth.
And really, if you take away one thing from all of this, let it be this. You cannot fix a problem you refuse to see clearly. You cannot change a reality you are completely disconnected from. The stories we tell ourselves can be powerful, for sure. But when they become illusions that just protect us from the truth, well, they become our cages.
And that really brings us to the end. The final question isn't for Wilson anymore. It's for you. What's the story you're telling yourself? And where's the gap between that story and the actual facts of your life? And more importantly, what could happen if you finally decided to close that gap for good?
Okay.
Check out, friends. Check out the Divergent Alliance in the first comment of this video.